Hi, everyone. Welcome to our class speaker series, Students Bem English. Today we have joint presentations by Luana Calzavara. Yes, and Vinicius da Cunha Moraes. They are both PhD students in Brazil. They are here under a very popular and important Brazilian fellowship, which we call Sandwich, which is which is a program that is essential to train students in Brazil that you start there and you end there, but you take some time in between to get some training somewhere abroad. They're both here under the advising of José Sheibubi, who will give comments to both their.
Am I giving comments?
Yes. No?
No, but don't.
Oh, okay. So he won't give comments. I mean, he can give comments anyway. So we'll have first Luana talking about dynamism in the Brazilian party system, and will be followed by Vinicius talking about, his title is Owners of the Land, Owners of the Land and Voters, and Votes, Aspects of Political Action of Ruralists in the Brazilian Chamber of Deputies. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure having you two here, and we'll pass the word.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for you all being here today. I'm sorry if my voice either way sometimes because it's not a flu, it's not COVID, but not my perfect timing. And I want to thank you, CLAS, for me being here, and Professor Sheibubi too for this opportunity. And today I'm gonna talk about a piece of my dissertation for my PhD that is about dynamism in the Brazilian party system, fragmentation within the Chamber of Deputies. So, for specifically a chapter that I'm working on, maybe two, but we'll see. So, for starters, what is a party system? So, I want to introduce you guys a little bit about what I'm talking about. You can see here, this is all the Brazilian parties. Like here in the US, you have a two-party system, mostly the parties that are competing for the executive. They are the most relevant inside the chamber of the deputies here that you call it lower house, but in Brazil it's chamber of deputies. And some definitions about it is about not only that we have all of them, but how they can interact with each other, and it's a phenomenon that is always changing. We have a lot of discussion in politics how about the parties interact with each other, how the party system can change during the several times in years. They change or they're not, they're still the same, and this kind of stuff. But one important thing that is the most important for me actually is how to count parties inside a party system. Because we have, like, nowadays in Brazil, 33 parties that are registered. In 2018 and 2002, we had 18. Now, in 2018, we had 30 parties inside the chamber, but they don't have all the same relevance. Like, we cannot compare a party that has like 1 or 2 seats with a party that has 50 seats. So they're changing, and we have an important index in political science that is called effective number of parties that we can measure and count the relevance of the party, not the relevance of the parties, but we can establish how is the strength of the parties are distributed inside the chamber. And this is the formula. This one is specific and important. Here, when you can look at the electoral arena and count the votes the party receives, but inside the legislative term, we can count, and the one I use in my work is the number of seats the EAESP party shares. So the proportion of seats shared by each party, and it is square. That is very important. So like Santiago Pereira, that they developed this index, they give different sizes to, no sizes, they give different strength, weights. So the bigger parties have more power on these seats, and the small ones are less. And this is my problem, my puzzle, because as you can see here, this is the end of the Chamber of Deputies in Brazil in almost 25 years. There is the time series that I'm counting on. And as you can see here, in 1994, it's 8.16 and decrease in the next election and keeps growing, and 2008 keeps growing a lot. So it's not stable, it's not like around this, is keep growing, like this problem. And how can we explain this change? I'm talking the literature after these two slides, because I want to show this guy to you. So I can explain this change. This graph here is I'm in love with this chart. I think it's very beautiful. Is the proportional of each party has inside the index. So here we can see in the end of the 90s, actually, we have four bigger parties in Brazil. There's PT, PSDB, can I say Portuguese? PMDB and PFL. There turns into them. And they are they are diminishing. PT not that much, but we can see PSDB diminishing. And we have one medium party here that keeps the same amount. We have more medium parties showing up in the graph, like this is PR, sorry. That it keeps growing. These are new parties here. Awesome. And then here it's all the smallest parties in Brazil. As the thin lines are the small parties, so they are not that important inside the index. So how can we explain this? Like the bigger parties are diminished, the medium-sized parties are growing and multiplying, and the small parties, they are numerous, but they are small ones. They don't count that much. And this is my chapter that I'm trying to talk about. It's not looking only at the electoral arena, but looking inside the Chamber of Deputies too. Because as we can see here, this is my data. Most of my data, this is, we have the electoral data and the data inside the Chamber of Deputies of how the parties and how the deputies, they change their affiliation, they are switching. So as you can see here, the green dots are the electoral end, and these gray bar are how the end that comes out of the electoral arena inside the parliamentary, they keep changing. And sometimes they are so close to the next electoral term, like here, like you can never predict. And sometimes they just keep growing. And the most of my work right now is trying to figure out what is going on here. It's my time, sorry. So my debate with the literature, we have, like I said before, most of our work is on the electoral arena, and this is totally valid, and this is what I want to talk with too. But we have most of the works focused on on a specific electoral term, and there are a lot of explanation about it, but not how it keeps growing. And she will brings the dynamism inside this explanation with the party switching. And the party switching is how we can move it to the parliament arena and explain how this keeps changing and what are the incentives, what are the parties doing, what is going on. And the literature on party switching is most of them focus on the incentive to the deputies, what can they achieve by moving to a party from a party to another. And we have some discussions about with Freitas, for example, how these movings are being about parties too. And then that's when I began with my proposed theory for this chapter that I'm working on. Is about how parties, how the strategies the parties use inside the chamber can provoke this change. And my claim is about the power positions inside the chambers and how they are expecting how the parties look at this based on their seats or how based on their size. And with this, they are trying to get more deputies so they can have a place on, or they can secure a place on the board of directors, the mesa diretora, standing committees, and college of leaders. So in Brazil, the speaker of chambers and all these spaces that are making decisions, spaces and setting agenda spaces, they are based on proportionality rule, but they also need votes for example, the board of director to ensure that the nomination of a party for one of his politicians to get the president of chamber, for example, standing committees for a party to nominate the president of the standing committee. They need a certain number of seats, so they are big enough to indicate someone. And the college of leaders, I don't know if the right translation, it's a space for setting agenda too. That only the parties with more than 5 seats can get in. So the small parties are not in there. So they don't have power to set the agenda, for example. And here some example of this strategy that I'm working on right now. For example, in 1998, PMDB from the electoral arena, he had was the biggest party. But even though they were working on catch 15 deputies, so they can ensure they would be the bigger party inside the arena, so they can re-elect Michel Temer as their president of the chamber. This is like one of the most important posts in Brazil politics. So even then they got bigger, and then concentrating the number, the effects of parties. For standing committees, Roberto Jefferson, that is a president and leader of PTB inside the Chamber of Brazil. He was struggling to get 2 more deputies so they can nominate 2, so they can have 2 standing commissions. And the College of Leaders, as an example of Zé Gomes, the guy that he was elected by PSD in 1999, but the party was so small that he wouldn't have power to do anything inside the party, the chamber. So he moved to PMDB. There is a bigger party that was the biggest party at that time. So he had some value on the chamber, and he got to be re-elected at the supplant, I don't know the name, for the 3rd secretary of board director. So this is what I'm working on right now. and for future directions, continue to analyzing all these migrations and understand better these structures of power inside the legislative term and how can potential affect the electoral impacts in the future. And that's it for now. And it's Vinicius now, and then.
So now.
Okay.
So, first of all, good to see everybody again. I'm Vinicius, I'm PhD candidate in Public Administration Government at Fundação Getulio Vargas in São Paulo. And like Luana, my friend, my partner here during these 6 months, visiting researcher at CLAS as well. So, first of all, I would like to thank so much all people from CLAS, Luis, Kayla, Katie. This experience is so important, so deep, so unforgettable. So thank you so much, and I would like to express as well thanks Professor Zeti Bubi for kindness, all attention during this moment. So this experience is really really important. So, right now, I'd like to share my ongoing research with all you. And I'm not going to do a normal presentation like Congress, a paper, but my idea here is to share my idea of research and some aspects that I consider more important to share and, I don't know, eventually shed light around some aspects. So my title is Owners of Land and Votes, Aspects of Political Action of Ruralists in Brazilian Chamber of Deputies. First of all, I'd like to try to justify why this group. I'm talking about the Ruralist Talks. This is an informal name. The formal name is, in Portuguese, is Frente Parlamentar da Agropecuária, something like Parliamentary Front of Agribusiness or Agriculture and Livestock. And they are the most powerful interest group that in Brazilian Chamber. They represent the most dynamic sector of Brazilian economy nowadays, agribusiness sector, and they really can debate and act to approve public policies related to environmental issues, economic development, and so on. So I'm going to follow this agenda, this brief introduction I just made, my research design, some historical aspects. I think it's important to understand the object and at the same time to dialogue with a plural audience, people from different areas of social science and history, and some kind of preliminary statistics that I'm going to explain this as well. So my research question is that. Is the Rural Caucus, SPA, the formal name, a kind of political party? We know that political parties organize the chamber in Brazil. So the idea is to try to understand if the Rural Caucus somehow define this logic that says that political parties organize the legislative work. This idea. So try to understand if they act like a political party. So I'm going to discuss some historical aspects and do a brief introduction, and I'm going to try to answer 3 questions. So first one, does the Rural Caucus act like a political party in the plenary of the Chamber of Deputies? And this idea, if they define parties, And the second question, does the Rural Caucus control the Agriculture Committee? I think that's important because all committees, they are very important because they approve matters, they formulate and discuss public policies. So it's very important to try to understand how the Rural Caucus act in committee. And the last question I'm going to try to answer is that the Rural Caucus organize election strategies, because we know too that who organize the elections are the party, especially, and I don't know, maybe the Rural Caucus try to organize some electoral strategy, and if it is true to be something new to our understanding of elections and so on. So I'd like to just to share this idea. So just like a timeline of development of political action of the Ruralists, I understand the political action and movement and so on in three parts. The first one, the embryonic stage, when they begin during the constituent context. In this moment, especially they were organized to fight against the claims to rural agrarian reform, especially. So the second moment, I'm calling artisanal stage. So in this moment, they they claimed to public policy, especially during the 90s. And at the same time, they fought against deputies connected related to landless movement, MST. And the third moment, I called professionalized stage, and especially because the creation of Instituto Pensado Agropecuária, something like Institute for Agricultural Thinking, something like that. And the point is, this is a kind of think tank that has emerged to professionalize the Rural Caucus political movement and so on. So right now, I'd like just to shed light on some aspects that I think that could be interesting and important to try understand some aspects, features of the movement and political act of this group. So here, quickly, just to understand it during this period, this moment, the party distribution, there's a concentration in right-wing parties. Here is distribution per state, and for example, Mato Grosso do Sul, it's a very important state in Brazil related to agribusiness and so on. So almost 80% of deputies, of all deputies from these states, is a member of this caucus, Rural Caucus. And this is an important thing that it's an evidence. I know that it's important, more statistical tests, but the idea here is try to understand if the Rural Caucus controls the Committee of Agriculture. So this model inside indicates that when FP's voting indication is favorable to a matter, the chances of approval are 94%. It's just like it's not a proof, but it suggests that they try to control this space, this political space in Chamber of Deputies. And here in general shows that on topics related to agriculture, they tends to indicate favorably, different, for example, from environmental issues. I think that this chart is interesting too, because, for example, when some bill or some matter comes from Workers' Party, a left-wing, the most left-wing, important left-wing in Brazilian political system, the tendency is that Rural Caucus will vote against some proposal that some PT's proposal or initiative. So I think that it's in this case, I'm trying to understand the degree of influence that they have in the plenary. It's just like I try to create a proxy to understand if what they want in general, if they really can get some of their ideas and political priorities. So my very preliminary conclusions is that the rural caucus has personalized over time and it makes a difference. We have evidence of some level of control over the agriculture committee, and they have a relative success in achieving some demands. This is the idea. Thank you so much. And I couldn't translate this slide to English. I'm sorry, but this is just some thoughts that they worked during the last years. So environmental licensing, land law, claims to infrastructure and logistics. They really fight against the demarcation of indigenous lands and so on. That's it. Thank you so much.
So I'm not prepared for comment. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time because it's nice to have a discussion. Thank you guys. I mean, it has been great. And it will be great, continue to be great, what having you here. And I learned a lot. And the only comments I want to make are a little bit more, I mean, they said it, but kind of contextualize a little bit more the importance and the relevance of their research. So Brazil there are so many positive things about politics there that I feel like we need people who are willing to spend a lot of time looking at that, the little details of how things happen so that we can understand. So there are two things. And I think their work they are related in an important way. So Luana attacks a puzzle, which I think is very dear to me because I wrote something about it, but on the electoral arena. And the puzzle is that in Brazil, until 2022, when there was a first decline in the number of parties, before a purely mechanical change in the legislation, nothing changed in terms of legislation, and nothing changed in terms of new social privileges, and yet the party system increased, as you saw inside the Congress, inside the lower chamber, but it was also true in the electoral arena. And those are the two explanations that political scientists have to account for the expansion of the number of parties. It's either because the rules changed, made it easier for parties to emerge, or social privileges emerged that created new parties. Neither of those happened in Brazil, and so there is no explanation. What the importance of what Luana is doing is that the same process, but it's a little bit, of course, what happens in Congress is a result of what happens in the election, but it's very different. And to my knowledge, I don't know anyone who has looked at what happens inside the Congress that gives incentives for politicians to not coordinate, which is the big puzzle in Brazilian politics. Why is it that these politicians prefer to be in a small party than to come together and be in a large party? One explanation that exists in political science, a terrible one, which is Brazilians are individualists. But people actually say that, and that's not a good explanation. So you kind of, what is important in that, try to figure out what the incentives are for these people to stay, to keep doing what they're doing. And one of the incentives must come from the rules inside the chamber. One thing that's easy to see there, normally the curves for the number of electoral parties and legislative parties go hand in hand, but I don't know if you remember, there is a big jump in 2010, meaning that the electoral fragmentation kept going, but they were doing something inside the chamber that reduced the number of parties, and that has to do with the rules that Luana is studying. So I think it's a very interesting thing. And Vinicius, so that's what I'm going to say about her work. And then Vinicius' work is related because it's a related puzzle in the following sense. Why we don't see large parties, we don't see issue-specific parties inside the chamber, but we see this very strong caucus that comes together, is super powerful, acts probably, I mean, that's what he's trying to discover, but chances are they act like a party. And then the question is, why aren't they a party? You know, why it's still preferable for them to stay as members of this caucus rather than being a formal party that could, in principle, benefit from all the rules in the chamber that benefit the parties, but not these kinds of fronts. So I think that's the puzzle he's addressing. I think it's a very, very important puzzle. So, good job.
Anyone have
we can.
Questions?
Yes, I have. No, I cannot be the first.
Let's go like rounding the table. You go first.
Okay. Thank you for your presentations, and I certainly enjoyed yours, but I was wondering about because you're explaining the phenomena of a party fragmentation, this sort of increase of medium-sized parties. And you seem you're suggesting, and Dr. Shambuba is suggesting, that there are political rules, incentives within the structure that sort of catalyze that. I didn't quite see, maybe this was the diagram, or maybe it was the explanations you gave. I didn't quite see what causal mechanisms you were identifying to explain what rules are actually causing the fragmentation. Because the examples that you gave involved, you mentioned the PSDB attracting more members as they go leaving the PSD. Those seem to be increasing the size of the parties. But I didn't see like a causal mechanism for the growth of medium-sized parties in terms of numbers to where they are today. And my second question for you is, can this all just be explained as the growth of Brazilian democracy naturally? I think the parliamentary shift theory is supposed to be sort of representing that. That's how I read it, at least. But yeah.
Can you say again?
The second question, I just wondered, and I think this is explained in the parliamentary direction theory that you brought up, is all of this just natural growth of Brazilian democracy? Because the sample size is only about 30 years of democratic history in the country.
I think we can listen another questions.
Oh, yeah?
Okay.
Yeah, but you can also.
We have some time.
Okay.
Your first question was so inside the chamber of deputies, we have some specific rules to access this kind of structures. So I'm still developing the causal mechanism of this, but so we have a proportionality rule that is used to distribute the power, but at the same time you have to secure the number of parties. So there's two things: the biggest party and then the middle-sized parties. The middle-sized parties are the ones that have the most incentives to catch them all. When a bigger party gets more deputies, they shrink the number. But if the small size one, like the medium ones, they get more, they are the ones doing the fragmentation happens because they are multiplying. They are the ones that have more value on the index than the small one, because the small one, as we can see, and I have data for it, but I'm still exploring this, they disappear inside the chamber, and these guys, they go to bigger ones, but depends always on the side, the direction of the migration. So, and what I am seeing or trying to understand myself, it's how the bigger one and the small size one, so the medium size one, they keeps growing. And one thing that I didn't show here, but I'm working on this too, it's how there's some parties in Brazil, like the PL, who is growing. In some election, he used deliberate the strategy to get these guys that are already inside the chamber, and these are the one that makes he grows in the next election. So I'm trying to figure out. And your second question, I still did not get it. I'm so sorry. I didn't know how the fragmentation affected the democracy. Is this? I didn't.
Oh no, I was just wondering if, because you mentioned you mentioned the theory to explain this fragmentation. Was this the natural growth of or the moving in the parliamentary direction? Which I was wondering and I was wondering, is that the same as just saying that like it's the natural growth of Brazilian democracy as the explanatory variable for the increase of parties, the party fragmentation? Is that just how Brazilian democracy look? Is it like Italian democracy or Japanese democracy, where the number of parties is massive how democracy works?
No,
Okay.
the natural growth of democracies is actually to reduce the number of parties.
Yeah.
That's what happens with all democracies because they work to coordinate and blah, blah, blah. So what's happening in Brazil is the opposite of so just an observation.
Thank you for your question.
And no shot.
No, thank you so much.
Is it me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you guys for your presentation. It's very insightful and I learned a lot. I think I have two very easy questions on this one. I don't understand very much. One is for Luana, which is, I mean, I want to understand more about your methodological approach. And how do you, I mean, what are the criteria you use like to divide the parties in like, yeah, like the size of the party, like medium, large, and this is the biggest question for me, like the methodological approach you're doing, and also how you, the criteria, no, to decide the size of the party. And I also would like to know, maybe, I mean, I don't think this is what you're studying, but still I'm interested, and you probably know that. What is the relationship between like the internal migration within the chamber rules and the electoral system? Like, does it affect the electoral results of party later on? Okay, so those are the questions I have for you. And then for Vinicius, I think it's much easier. So there's one slide you showed that says the following. Somehow, if a proposal, I mean, if there is a proposal by PT, somehow the FPA rules against it, votes against it. So does it happen regardless of the theme, the question at stake, or only by default of being by PT, they vote against? Do you know that? That's it.
The size is a subject always, because we can tell it as like the bigger one is one that had at least 10% of the chamber, and in 94, 98 was 3, 4 at first, and then 3 and 2 and 1, and now we have 2. No, but 4. So the bigger one are easy to decide which one is 10%. The smallest one, I'm using the rule by who can access the college of leader, the 5, but I think this is I don't know the name in English for the smallest, not the smallest one. Nanoparties. And between them, the medium, but the medium has this difference because but then you have it's always a big discussion about how to measure the parties, but I had to decide what rule I am using. I had one. And about the electoral effect, I've been working on it, and I'm seeing that it's not like every party uses the switchers in the electoral arena, but the party I've seen it using this as a strategy are the medium ones like PL, PP, PTB. These ones, they are the ones that I can see that are growing. They're is bigger. Are the ones that can use this. Not at time they have the growth, but they use this more. And this is like electoral effect. I'm working on this. Yeah.
Okay. And answer that question, I built a data set with all FPA's indication in general. So it's a data set with 1,400 observations, initiatives like laws, projects of laws, and things like that. I didn't categorize into issues like I don't know, health or agricultural. But what I was trying to see and identify is some kind of ideological alignment, you know. And this is the idea, because we naturally suppose that the rural caucus, they are a right-wing group, right? So the idea is try to do a lot of tests to prove that this idea that we suppose it's really true. So this is the idea of that test you mentioned. But I don't know specifically, for example, if they propose something related to public administration, the tendency, the trend is necessarily like that. It's a general, it's not divided by category.
Can I just jump on this? So basically, you don't know if like the Workers' Party proposed something on like school, I don't know, like, to reform anything on schools. You don't have the data necessarily, like if the Frente Parlamentar, the caucus will post that, because you just have the information on the bills in which the caucus have like manifested some position, right?
Yes, my next step is just try to do this tests like that. For example, looking at I don't know how to say medida provisória in English. Yeah, that's right. And it's exactly take this kind of law, type of law, and put one side the position of FPA and the other side the position of all of the parties, not just PT. And the idea is that try to define how I don't know if in certain circumstances the FPA can defeat political party orientation. This is the idea. What's my next step? And I have to deliver something to Zé until November.
Do they, just clarifying question, do they express a preference over non-agricultural issues?
Yes.
They do about everything?
About everything.
But they're
About
not
everything.
that common, right?
For example, I know. For example, if I can show to you this database with 1,400 observations with voter orientation, I can identify each one. So I can, for example, divide and categorize. But it's easy to get access. I know, for example, what they think about, I don't know, tax reform, about all kind of issues, because they turn this kind of position public. So it's easy to, this is the idea. Yes, that's it. My next step, that's it. Yes.
Out of these 1,400 observations that you have, like, I mean, this is part of the total number of views that have been voted, right? Like,
No.
you have no idea of how many, how the percentage of like the views, the total views that have been voted, do you have like orientation on?
The question is, they build and offer to the public their political position. Not necessarily all matters or all observations go to the vote in the plenary of the chamber, you know. So they, for example, try to avoid some kind of observation. This is possible. But the point is, what I want to do right now is just literally select important observations that went to the votes, and then try to compare their political position, FPA, to other political parties.
I have I don't know, something that comes to my mind.
We can talk every time. Just kidding.
No, because one of your questions is like that we are talking in our research, had a discussion, but why they don't form a party. I was thinking about why not. And I was like, if I know that everyone that is inside the FPA, if they are like strong enough, they are leaders, they on their own parties, like the cost to make one party is too much, and they can maybe influence the other parties by being there, like dividing to get straight. I don't know. I think about it.
I would just want to jump on that and on this comment about forming a party. I mean, to me, when you ask, to me, the question is why they would be, why they would have all the problems of having a party and having to win elections, or if they are doing, destroying the country, actually, without having the burden to have a party. Just to follow.
I think that this is the main part of the puzzle. We were talking, I don't know, 2 weeks ago. If I can explain why it's better do not have a party, this is the point. I think that it's more interesting for them do not have a party, because electorally is interesting because they, for example, each deputy associated to agribusiness can create the better strategy, electoral strategy, depends on the state. For example, in São Paulo, could be more interesting someone be affiliated to, I don't know, PL, and in Rio de Janeiro to another party. I think that could be one reason. And I think that it's interesting. I'm just in a local grade, I'm not absolutely sure. This is kind of idea that I'm trying to follow to answer and try to prove something in this direction. I think that in the legislative works, day by day, it's more interesting too, that they can, for example, organize some kind of influence inside different parties. I think that they can distribute a kind of strategy that it's more interesting to spread our hands in different places of power.
It's a win-win for them, I think, in the case that they can be everywhere. They don't need to.
Perhaps you could get data on like what are their positions inside their own party. Because otherwise, like if they form a new party, like, and you are like the treasurer of your current party, you would probably lose like this position once you form a new party, because there would be like fewer positions to.
Can you repeat, please?
Like maybe you can look at also like their current position in their own party, in their current party, to see if they are secretary of the party, if they are treasurer of the party, if they are the president of the party or whatever, to check, like, because then you have a constraint, like forming a new party will probably lead to you losing that current status that you have in your own party right now, in order to, you have like fewer spots and etc. I mean, just throwing away an idea, perhaps could work for this.
It's a good.
But I think your question presupposes that it is better to not be in a party than to be in a party.
I mean, maybe there.
No, and that's something that you kind of have to establish. I mean, I was taking for granted that it is better, but you're raising that maybe it's not. And we have to have, you have to have a position on that and see how they, there may be, that's it. I mean, maybe they just prefer. But
you're right.
But then, but the thing is that they don't get any of the resources that the state, because they're rich, So.
And they get, maybe I imagine that they get the resources in other ways, right? With other kinds of benefits that the state provides them.
If every party that they already are, it's bigger than the one they could get if they form one block, it would not be worth it for them. I don't know.
Can I?
I think she was first.
I was curious if you, thank you for the presentation, it's a very interesting presentation. I was just wondering if you could comment on something specific that's not exactly in your presentation, etc. And it's about what happened to PSDB.
A $1 million question.
Used to be it's an important party in Brazil.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, used to be.
Yeah.
social.
But he was never that big, you know, like he was never the
Please
first.
don't say that about my party.
Yeah, just because he's from São Paulo, oh my God, the biggest part of the. But he never was the first one in the Chamber of Deputies elected, like was PFL, was PNDB, and PSDB was the third. He was big, of course. He was big. I'm not saying that.
Being the third is not bad.
It's not bad. He was a big part, but it was not the biggest. The biggest one that no one talks about is them, PFL, PMDB, how they diminished so bad. And I think it's a $1 million question,
But
but
in the ideological span, it was
But
really important.
even before now, like once they got out of the power, they start to diminish. There's a lot of things that happen in Brazilian politics, the position they take,
Thanks, guys.
yeah, but he was working to there is a premium delation. I had to read how they were paying people to get into PSDB, to PSDB get bigger. I don't know if you guys have any topics on what happened to PSDB. I have to write another dissertation about. There's a guy in USP, Henrique Cury, and his works is very good about it. And because PSDB, he had a strategy to making mayors, city councils, and they got São Paulo all over the place. But they had a lot of. There's a theory from Fernando de Monge, Ivan Stelai, that the parties, they were changing support in the states so they can have support on the presidential corrida race. And this could affect the bigger parties. I don't have if the other political sites in the wrong one help me on this. Yeah, the four bigger ones were diminishing. You know, on PT, maybe because the more ideological one, he wants to keeps going, keeps fighting for the presidents of Brazil and stuff, and they didn't lost too many parties as they was before. But they came out.
I have two questions. First, I think it's amazing the work that you political scientists do that, makes us think that it's hard to find those variables and, just discuss in a more scientific.
I go to history.
I didn't say that. But it's super interesting to see, how you build these arguments in a way that is different, but also makes us think about, the political system. I was thinking about the ruralists, Vinicius, they're certainly the more powerful, but there are other groups that could be political parties or act like lobbyists. And the whole idea of the lobby and how they perform in Brazil, I think it's interesting to compare to the US because it's a different, here it seems that to me that is more institutionalized than there. Some things that are illegal there are not here. Just to think about what would be other groups that you could apply the same kind of thought. Because, mainly because, they are powerful and they're crucial to understand the Brazilian political system now, but they're not the only ones and they're not the first ones. So it's just kind of thinking about it. And for you, when I was thinking that, there is a reason why those small parties exist, right? It's not that, what I was thinking is that at some point they get some power, even if it's just to be fiel da balança. How do you say that?
The pivot?
Yeah, the pivot for a decision, or if there are two groups and there are groups that can decide, for instance, in other systems like the Israeli system, where the systems are very defined, then the small parties, sometimes they get more power as their decisions are, they define some discussion. I just was wondering why not all parties are created to be big, right? Because not people think that they become big. So it's sort of like, so why do they exist?
I'd like to know why the bigger parties let the small parties exist, like something like this. And then I answer. So, can I go front?
You start.
I want to understand. You want me to start? I want to. There's already systems one that I want to study because I know that is very fragmented too, but it did not. As far as I know, this don't happen in Brazil. Like the smallest one, they got attached to the bigger ones to vote. They are not like the field balance, let's say, the people. They don't usually, as far as I know, they don't act like this. We had a lot of work on the electoral arena, how they can bargain their power, or how they invest on a particular candidate and keep him going, or how they exchange their time for TV and funds to get in a coalition. So they have more this bargain power in the electoral arena, as far as I know. They have it, and they exist because of that. Spite of, I think that the bigger one could suffocate them, but they don't do it because they have this power on the electoral arena, as far as I know.
Trying to answer, my original idea, thinking of my the research project, was trying to explain the calculus system in Brazil, because there's a lot of different types of calculus. Trying to explain this calculus system using looking at the ruralists like a special case. But during this process, it was hard to compare because there are very different types of calculus too. And the ruralist one, they are most professionalized, most rich. They aggregate a lot of features and characteristics that distinguish a lot of them, distinguish the calculus to other calculus. So in a sense that it would be difficult to compare groups different. It's not easy. For example, we have other types of calculus super important. For example, the environmentalists, they are important, super important. Or the evangelicals, or
and
people.
They have party now. They have a party now, the evangelicals.
Yeah.
Republicanos.
But for example, if you look at the leaders of evangelicals, none of them are members of Republicanos.
Of the Republicanos are from the Universal Church of the Reino de Deus.
You're right. But I think that the Republicans is just like aligned, connect to one
big
church specific. And there's a lot of church. But I think that it's hard to explain in this way, and because of this, I try to look just to the ruralists. But I think that you're absolutely right. We have to understand which type of mechanism each group of them can mobilize and organize to make politics. I think that they act in different ways. I think that they use different strategies to act.
Thank you.
That's
So
all.
if we don't have more questions, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Our next one will be
Yes.
We will see all of you before.